Overwatch's Hitscan DPS run actually pretty deep. I mean, there's MCCREE, Soldier, Tracer, Widow, ASHE, even Sombra, Reaper, and Bastion are all technically Hitscan DPS. Now, in order to help you master these characters, I'm going to be giving you one tip and one mistake on every one of these heroes so that you can become the best Hitscan DPS possible. Speaking of becoming the best, GameLeap.com is your best way to become broken. We got in-depth VOD reviews over high-level games for all of the characters in this video, so if you want to level up your game even further at the end, go check it out. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now, the first character on the list is your favorite cowboy, MCCREE. Now, MCCREE is the flick style DPS that thrives on burst tap damage, the ability to win 1v1s versus most every squishy, and even tanks if played correctly. Now, the biggest tip I have for you as MCCREE is use Fan the Hammer more. Yes, I don't just say this because I can't aim, which may or may not be true, but realistically, even pro MCCREE players are using Fan the Hammer quite often. You see, sometimes it's great when you 100% need to kill the target incredibly quickly, like up against a Mei, and you don't want to give her any time to react with, like an ice block, for example. On top of that, just breaking shields or even dealing damage to tanks at medium range, if you have proper recoil and hit the majority of your shots, it will have some of the highest damage per second in the entire game. Now, moving on to the mistake for MCCREE. The biggest mistake that MCCREE players often will have is against most enemies, they will just spam left, right, crouch. But realistically, up against most enemies in the game, you want to take long strafes and not sporadic movements, so that's a lot easier for you to course correct your aim, because it makes it really hard for you, especially when it's a click, fire, and not a burst or spread weapon, and not a full auto weapon. If you are moving like crazy, it's going to mess up your aim dramatically. Now, the only character that I really do think that you should be moving like left, right, crouch, spamming is specifically Widowmaker, but any other character besides her, you really should be doing long strafes. Now, moving on to the next here on our list, we have Mr. Call of Duty himself, Soldier 76. Now, Soldier 76 is a mobile DPS that has his own sustain, burst, and a versatile spread weapon. The biggest tip that I would give you on Soldier is when enemies are coming after you, a lot of soldiers will run away a little bit, and then they'll turn around to try to do damage or gather info. You should be realistically running non-stop. You see, a lot of characters have really strong mobility, but Soldier's biggest benefit is that his mobility never ends. There is no cooldown. You can run non-stop. So realistically, what you need to be doing is if like a Winston, a Genji, or whoever is coming after you, you run. You could even run left, run right, try to make it pretty hard for them to hit you, and then you keep running until you are 100% safe, whether that means with your team or across the map. It does not matter. Get the heck out of there and utilize the most powerful aspect of Soldier, which is his infinite mobility. Now, the biggest mistake with Soldier players traditionally is Soldier players love to play with their team when you shouldn't be playing with your team at all in Soldier. Soldier's raw damage number is really low, actually, and just playing Soldier to shield break is not what you want to be doing at all. You want to be using your mobility to flank behind, take the high ground, poke at the enemy's supports, poke at the tank's backside, not their shields, make them turn around, find a way to get a kill, try to take 1v1s. This is the most effective way that Soldier is played in that guerrilla warfare style, not as a front line shield breaker. There's a lot of characters that do that job a lot better. Now, moving on to the next character on our list, we have Tracer, you know, an ADHD crazed horizontal mosquito who can harass a backline and win almost any 1v1. Now, a big tip that I have for you on Tracer is the sneaky Tracer, and this is the most underutilized Tracer, the crouch sneak around Tracer. You see, Tracer can set up in cubbies, set up incredibly close to enemies, but sneak there, and the benefit of that is she gets to save all of her cooldowns, and she can start doing damage to an enemy basically without using any of them. I mean, if you could sneak up behind someone, you can start doing damage to them, and if they already have taken 60, 70, 80 damage before you used any of your abilities, it's going to be a very easy matchup for you to win, so I would highly suggest that. Now, a big mistake on Tracer is playing her against Brig. No, all joking aside, even though Brig, of course, is a big counter doer, the biggest mistake that I personally see when doing VOD reviews on Tracer players is they will use their blinks far too much to close the gap. And this basically wastes some of the biggest strengths to Tracer. So let's say an enemy is like 30, 40, 50 meters from you. And instead of you walking over there, routing, using natural cover, sneaking over there even, whatever, you use 2 or 3 blinks to get close to them. Now you are 150 HP squishy with only a recall that is also going to take you completely out of the fight, and you have no means to use your blinks to duel. You want to basically come into contact with an enemy basically at the maximum only using 1 blink, because then you have your other 2 blinks or 3 blinks to dodge fire, duel the enemy, do more damage, and then you can use your recall to get out after you secure the kill. This is a very important aspect on Tracer, but you'd be surprised, tons of players, even high-level Tracers, will do this completely incorrect. It's all about using your resources and your abilities and converting that into damage and pick value. Now the next hit scan on the list is a Widowmaker, a long-distance sniper who can win an entire team fight by just clicking the head. Easy as that. But the big tip that I have for you, you need to effectively space away from your enemies with your positioning and your grapple. A lot of Widows will go for these grapple hook shots, but those should only be used when you're 100% safe positionally, because enemies are going to use that as an opportunity to try to punish you. Now, what you need to be doing generally when playing Widow is it's easy to get tunnel visioned, but you need to be paying attention to where enemies are positioned and how close they are to you. You should almost always be consistently repositioning accordingly. Monkey pushes up a little bit, you pull back. Ideally, you would never use your grapple to reposition, and grapple is like a last-ditch effort, but you're instead just constantly repositioning in between engages or in between shots so that you're never in a positional scenario to where a Genji or a Monkey can get near you and kill you out of nowhere. Now, the biggest mistake that I see on Widowmaker is it doesn't seem like anyone can stand still. And this is an even worse mistake than the mistake I was talking about on MCCREE. You see, you ever op in CSGO and Val, right? You have to stand still to hit your shot, right? Well, in Overwatch, it doesn't make you stand still. You can still hit your shot while you're moving, but you should be standing still when you're taking those shots. And let me tell you why. It is so easy for you to hit a shot when you are standing still on these rapidly moving enemies, but when you're moving left and crouching at the same time, and your enemy is moving right and crouching and moving left, and all these movements are happening, and what do you think is happening to your crosshair? It's going all over the place. It is so hard for you to consistently hit shots when you are moving like a mad person. So here's what I would suggest. Try and plant your feet before shots, especially when you are shooting someone who doesn't know you are there. You took it off angle, you're taking that first shot. That first shot should be the most accurate as possible, because let me tell you something. It is so easy to hit a shot on someone when enemies are not paying attention to you. But once they do know you're there, they're gonna run, they're gonna hide, they're gonna crouch left, right, spam, and then it's gonna be so much harder for you to hit that shot. So plant your feet, do not move, and make that first shot count. Now moving on to the next character on our list, our second favorite cowgirl, ASHE, is a sniper hybrid who has a combination of movement and hard-hitting abilities. Now, the biggest tip I have for you about ASHE is a scoped headshot plus an insta unscoped body shot will one-tap 200 HP heroes just like that. And it will happen almost instantly. So if you don't have that mercy pocket that we all want, just hit them in the head once with your scope, unscope, instantly shoot, and it will be over just like that. And if you hit them in the head and they run across or behind natural cover, of course, you could just dynamite them, but that's just a completely different combo. Now, a big mistake that I see with ASHE is throwing B.O.B in too early. You see, B.O.B is great at taking aggression, touching points, but you want it to really generate pressure and absorb cooldowns as your team goes in. So here's the 2 ways that I would suggest to use B.O.B. Either use it as your team is pushing in so that it can take a lot of those aggros and cooldowns and you can use that pressure to create space and make a play, or wait until B.O.B is thrown after the enemy has used a lot of these cooldowns. When their Ryan has low shield health, when their Ana doesn't have sleep dart, because then the Ryan can't just shield off the B.O.B, the Ana can't just sleep the B.O.B, and he's a lot bigger of a threat than just having this B.O.B that you can deal with 100 ways till Sunday. Now moving on to the next hit scan on our list, we have SOMBRA, which is my favorite character in the game. But honestly, my biggest tip for SOMBRA for you is, as an easy tip, like this takes no skill at all, but it's so effective. It's just wait invisible on a high ground and watch your team. If the enemy is playing a Doomfist, Tracer, Genji, Hammond, just stay on the high ground invisible objective is and just literally watch your team like a watchdog, really, like you're just a watchdog. And the second one of these characters come at your team, just hack them. And basically this is a counter hack, and these will basically strand these movement heavy characters on the enemy team in your team's backline. They'll fall right on top of your team, and then you'll just be able to kill them for free. And this is so effective, and it takes zero mechanical skill. Realistically, it takes no skill at all, but it's like one of the most effective things you could do. Now, the biggest mistake on Sombra is, there's actually two of them, is one is translocating too far away. You want to translocate to where you're not completely out of the fight. You want to rely on just regular heals, not just like teleporting back to spawn to get heals, because you need to be constantly in the fight, constantly creating ult charge, having that time contributing to a team fight. You can't just be out for 35 seconds at a time. You're not going to get enough value to actually do anything in a team fight, and your team is often going to be taking these 5v6s. Now, the second mistake kind of goes along with that, and it's just focusing on hacking health packs far too much. This isn't old Sombra where you wanted to hack health packs so that you could build your ult charge. Hacking health packs is cool, like it's good to use a health pack, and if your team is playing in a room with a mega, hacking that mega could be very powerful. But if you waste all your time hacking megas and running around the map making sure you hack every single mega, what are you not doing? That's right, you're not building ult charge. And let me tell you this, if you think that having a couple health packs around the map is more likely to impact the game than you having anywhere from 30 to 50% more ult charge, then I don't know what to tell you, because it's pretty obvious what will have more of an impact on average. It's having that ultimate instead of dying as a team when you don't have it because you wasted all your time trying to hack megas. Now, moving on to the next character on the list, everyone's favorite edgelord, Reaper, who is, of course, is a tank buster, definitely capable of killing any character in a 1v1 if you let him get away with being so close. Now, the biggest tip that I have for you about Reaper is using his Shadow Step teleport aggressively to close off exits and take position on enemies. Specifically, enemies that can't deal anything about you, like they don't have enough CC or they don't have enough burst. Like if a monkey jumps away to a choke, just teleport right past him, cut off his exit, kill him. You could do the same thing with all kinds of characters. Even a Widowmaker, if she's not paying attention to you directly or she's paying attention to something else, just teleport right near her or on top of her, insta wraith, pop out, kill her. Using teleporter aggressively is something that I see a lot of pro players when they play Reaper do, that a lot of players in ranked don't do, but there's a reason for that. I think people are just a little bit too afraid to do that, but Reaper can really get in aggressively, and this is one of the best ways he could do that. As a last tip, make sure you crouch while you ult, man. Crouch while you ult. Anyways, the big mistake from Reaper is exposing yourself before you're actually engaging or doing damage on enemies. You see, Reaper has a very close effective range. It's pretty obvious. And if you play any other shooter, you know, fight in your effective range. But a lot of Reaper players will be walking around the map trying to route to an enemy. And yes, you have this teleport, but what is even better to set up with right off the bat is set up on a perch, in a cubby, in a high ground, so that by the time you're on top of an enemy, you're already in your effective range doing damage to them. So whether it's a Widow or Hanzo or MCCREE, you're all up in their face and you are doing damage right away, and the closer you are, the more burst it will be. You'll be playing in your effective range, and the more pressure you put on these enemies, the more likely they're gonna fail, mess up because of that pressure. So make sure that you're not routing in the open and you're hiding information about your positioning until you engage them incredibly close. Now, the last but certainly not least character on our list, everyone's favorite tank, Bastion. Now, the best tip that I have for you on Bastion, you might have heard it, but it's a pretty good one, is just try to heal between every shot in Bastion's ultimate. You can fire, heal, fire, heal, fire, heal. Once you get used to the timing, it's incredibly simple, and it has no downside. It just gives you more sustain, so every single time you're ulting, you should be doing this tip. Now, the biggest mistake on Bastion is actually a game sense mistake. So, you're Bastion, right? And you're on cart. You are being shielded off. You don't have to worry about positioning. You don't have to worry about pretty much anything besides just shooting the enemy, right? So instead of just being on cart, no-branding it, you have no reason not to be ult tracking. Because guess what? Dragon, Blizzard, Graviton Surge, there's so many different ultimates that you need to know exactly how much ult charge the enemy has. So while you're sitting on the cart, brain dead, doing nothing else, maybe ult track a little bit so that you can better make a game plan or position if the enemy have some of these powerful ultimates. Anyways, these tips just touch the surface, but we have way more advanced video videos and guides and tips on the GameLeap website. So if you want to master any of these characters, do yourself a favor and go check it out. But let me know in the comments down below what other videos you want to see. Do you want to see a projectile guide? Do you want to see a tank, support, whatever you need? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. But that's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Schmelz, and of course, until next time,